Hello and welcome to part 2 of the meal tracker video. So in this part of the video, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing step number 3, where we're going to go ahead and implement our UI table view data source. So let me just go ahead and minimize the textbook here and open our project back up that we completed as part 1. So the last thing we did in part number 1 was we created our meal and our food data model structures. So what we need to do is we need to go back in our food table view controller. So let me go ahead and select that. And I'm just going to delete some information out of here. So I'm going to delete all the comments under my viewDidLoad method. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to delete everything after our cell for row at function. So let me just go ahead and delete the rest of this stuff and delete it. And the last thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and uncomment out my cell for row at function. So let me just go ahead and uncomment that out. They do tell you to go ahead and remove all the sections except for one of the functions they mention is the for header and section. That does not come in the standard template, so we're going to have to be creating that function a little bit later on in this video. So the first thing they want us to do is create a computed property meals of type an array of meal. So, and then after that, in the body of the property, we're going to create 3 meal objects. We're going to name them breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then we're going to create 3 food objects for the food array on each meal object. And we're going to give each food item an appropriate name for its corresponding meal. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and pause the video right now, and I will go ahead and create that property for us, and then after I create it, we'll walk through the properties. So I will be back in a second. Okay, I've gone back into the file and I've created our array of meals. So for each one of our meals, I've created 3 separate food instances. So, and what I've named them, first breakfast food, second breakfast food, third breakfast food, and then within our food structure, I defined a name and a description for each one of them. So for our breakfast, we have eggs, we have hash browns, and we have bacon. So those are our 3 food instances. And then for our meal instance, I gave the meal the name of breakfast. And then I specified the array of food objects that I created for breakfast. Did the same thing for lunch, first lunch food, second lunch food, and third lunch food, gave it a name and a description, and then created my meal object for lunch, giving it a name, and then specifying my array of foods that are included in my lunch. And then finally, I did that for the dinner. I've created 3 food objects for my dinner, first, second, and third, gave them a name and description, and then I created my meal object, specifying the 3 types of foods that will be in my dinner meal. And then finally, the last step they wanted us to do is to go ahead and return the 3 meal objects in an array. So that's basically what I'm doing on that return statement, is just returning those 3 meal objects. So the next thing they want us to do is we need to go in and implement the number of sections. So let me just go ahead and delete the code here. We should know that as far as the number of sections would be the size of our meals array. So basically we're going to have 1 section in our table for our breakfast, 1 section in our table for lunch, and 1 section in our table for dinner. So in order to go ahead and get the number of sections, it would just be return, and then it would be the size of our meals.count. So that'll return the number of sections. The next thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and specify the number of rows in the section. So again, let me go ahead and delete this comment. And for our return type, what we need to do is we need to return the number of rows for the section that gets specified. So in order to do that, it would just be our meals. And then it would be the section that gets passed in, section number, which is one of the parameters that gets passed into this function. So it would just be our section in square brackets. And then what we need to do is we need to go ahead and call our food array and specify the count for that. So that will give us the number of food items that are available for that meal or that section in our table. So we've done that. The next thing they want us to do is let me go back into the directions here and we can read through them here really quick. So we've gone through, we've defined the number of sections. The next thing we need to do is we need to go into our table view, cell for row at. We need to dequeue a cell with the reuse identifier food cell, and then from the returned meal, we're going to access the food for the row using indexPath.section and access the food for the row using the indexPath.row property. And then we're going to update the cell's text label text and detail text label text to be the name and description of the food item. So that is what's going to be showing up in each one of our cells. So let me just go ahead and expand this here. So let's go down here. Okay, so every time I've tried to do this in the past, I've always messed things up. But what I want to do here is for my identifier, I want to put in, instead of specifying food cell with 2 L's, which it has been defined in our table cell, I'm just going to go ahead and specify it with 1 L this first time and show you what error you will see if you do not specify the correct identifier in the dequeue reusable cell method. So I'll go ahead and specify that. Then, like they mentioned, the next thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and let our meal will equal our meals, and then we're going to specify our array, and it will just be our index path, and it will be .section. So that'll pull off our meal. Either it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner in our meals array, and then we're going to specify let food, and that will equal meals, a meal.food. And then what we're going to do is we're going to specify our index path at the row. So then what this line here on line 53 will retrieve the 3, in this case they all have 3 food items associated with it. It will retrieve each one of those food items. And then finally, what we need to do in this function is we need to update the labels in our cells. So first one will be our cell.text label, and again it's an optional, and it'll be the .text field. And what we're going to set that to is our food.name property, and then our cell, and then it's our detail text label .text field, and we are going to set that to our food.description, and then we're going to return the cell. Okay, detail text label. Oh, I need to specify an optional there, so we will specify our optional value. And then finally, we need to implement that final function the function is title for header and section. So in order to do that, I'll type in override, since we're overriding the parents, and it will be table view. And title for header and section actually appears first in my list, so I will just go ahead and select that. And what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and return the meals, and then the specific section dot name. So what this will do is that'll go ahead and set up each one of our sections with a title. So that should show breakfast, lunch, or dinner. So I think that's all the code we need to go ahead and implement. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and build and run my project, and when the app comes up, I will unpause the video. Well, it looks like I missed one crucial step when we were actually walking through the various steps that we needed to do. And the one crucial step I messed up on was when you go ahead and click on I need to go into my main.storyboard, and currently I do not have a default view set up. So the app does not know what the default view for my app is. So what I need to do is I need to go ahead, select my navigation controller, and in the attributes I need to go ahead and set that up as my isInitialViewController. So that was one of the steps that I did not complete. Let me see here, where was that? Oh, right here on step number 2. So I forgot to set it as the initial view of the app. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video and we will see what happens. Okay, and it looks like we're getting an error here. That's what I kind of expected. So if I go ahead and scroll on up to our console to see what the actual error is, it says here, unable to dequeue a cell with identifier food CEL. Must register a nib or a class for the identifier or connect a prototype cell in a storyboard. So what I did was I misspelled it by on purpose to let you see, and the error that will occur, this is a very common error that you may see in the future, is by just misspelling an identifier. So I am going to go ahead and spell it correctly and bring the simulator back up, and we will see what our meal tracker app looks like. So it's coming up here, and it's come up, and it looks like everything is looking good. We have our title of meals, and then we have our 3 sections, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And for each one of the section, we have our food and the description of the food. So looks like our app is running great. So basically that walks you through the Meal Tracker Lab at the end of lesson 4.5, table views. So we will talk to you next time.